So good morning to everybody. A quick introduction to requirements. We'll go through requirements definition, doing requirements incrementally and or upfront, whether we want to use Agile, Waterfall, or some kind of hybrid version, and where the requirements activities fit in. Then we'll discuss these ambiguous one-liners and both the good and the kind of poor things that Agile teams experience and when they do requirements. We'll then discuss keeping separate requirements from tasks and bugs and to-dos. Then more about how to fix some of these issues, getting developers and testers to work together. What questions could we have them ask each other and the customer to figure out what a good requirement would look like and how the tester would test that. Other requirements types, if you are using Agile or like a Scrum methodology, that is only focused on one type of requirement, and there are many other types of requirements that end up being discovered late in a project, which they could be discovered earlier. How to add and organize these details of requirements. If you have existing specs, how to refer back to those. If you want to become like an Agile team. Managing change. Simple models. There are some diagrammatic techniques that are very simple to use to describe requirements that are a lot easier than narrative text, and we'll look at just a few of those, both for decisions and for interfaces and workflows of a user. And then we'll have time at the end for Q&A. So here's me. As Wendy said, I am a computer science background. I'm a Scrum Master. I do a lot of work in CMMI. Some companies want to do that. Some people don't. They can choose what model they want to use. And my background is a developer within TI, and the process group is since 1990. So we're in our 30th year or 29th year of doing work. So let's discuss the details. Requirements definition. What is a requirement? And then doing requirements either incrementally, for example, in an Agile methodology, or doing it in a upfront, or maybe even a hybrid version of a life cycle. So here's some examples of a requirement in terms of the definitions. The first one is IEEE, conditional capability needed by a user to solve a problem or achieve an objective. So if you pare that back a little bit, really the software or the IT solution is solving a problem that they have. And anything else would not be particularly valuable. Or they have a goal to make things go faster, integrate other data types, produce different reports, control other machinery. They have a goal they want to achieve as well as a problem to go fix. So a simpler way to say that is that the user has a task they want to perform, not a feature. They didn't ask for a grammar feature or a web feature. They asked for data to be transferred to other people or the grammar to be checked in line with the code, in line with the text of the document. So I'll give you an example of that. If you go to, for example, my favorite website, or one of them, is Amazon.com. One of the reasons I like that is because the Amazon people have put on the screen the very commands people want to do. If you want to change shipping or modify a package or change the address, they've thought through the tasks you want to perform, and they're able to then put a command on the screen that reflects that. If they just had shipping or the word delivery, you'd have to then navigate that feature to figure out what you actually could do with that thing, but they make it crystal clear. So a good software or good IT solutions mimic the end user task they actually want to perform, and that makes it useful and easy to learn and operate. The picture in the targets, I don't believe target A is particularly achievable. You could spend a lot of time trying to make a perfect requirement set and never quite get there because using language text to describe requirements is very difficult, and people don't often either know what they want or able to describe what they want. Target D on the far right is also not particularly useful. If you look at the screen carefully, there is a target in there, but so ambiguous that you'd be spending a lot of time to go code and build things to figure out if you had met that. So I think target A and target D can cause a lot of wasted time. However, target B in the middle and target C are achievable. It is possible to ask questions to elicit requirements. It is possible to have those as initially ambiguous, they get clarified. And in target C's example, there may well be a collection of ambiguous requirements, but actually one set of them are very clear. Maybe the first set, there are particular problems or needs the user is trying to figure out, and then the requirements beyond that set have to be then refined over time. So I think it'd be an error to say we can't get any requirements and just go code something and see what happens. That's fine if you have lots and lots of money to spend with no end in sight. The whole point of having requirements is to clarify a goal and then target that goal closely to spend less time and less money achieving that. But it does require feedback loops, and we'll discuss those a little further downstream. This now allows us to reduce rework and wasted time, building things that either people don't or cannot use, and then to set up the downstream activities like testing and tech pubs and user guide people, marketing and sales, if you have those people, being able to provide good definitions that they actually can rely on to do their work too, to speed up their work and speed up the whole life cycle. So let's discuss a couple of ways to do that, and then we'll go into the details to figure out how to get good requirements. Well, one popular way is incremental, or through an agile process like Scrum, where we have a backlog of requirements. They are collected. We maybe pick out a 2-week cycle for the first set of features, or first feature to kind of 2-week increment. We plan it, we do the work, we test it, we do a demo to get feedback, which is good, and then we do a retrospective or lessons learned activity to figure out how well those 2 weeks went, or how well that sprint went. And then if you look at the middle box, review backlog, if there are changes to requirements, either additions, deletions, or modifications, we can go look at those, decide our next increment, and then go through 2 weeks of activity. And then the third kind of a brown box, we do review the backlog again. So the Scrum or Agile methodology can be very useful to not get too attached to a set of requirements that may well change, or we may discover better requirements. And it is also very useful to get feedback on what we're building early on before we build too many things like that in the system. Of course, the downside is that teams are very short-term focused to the point where they really have no end in sight, and so they're always discovering as they go. So there are some positives of Scrum, and there are some risks of Scrum also. Now, Waterfall, this has its own positives and negatives too. The positive is there are requirements, so activities downstream can be based upon those. But the negative is if that is poorly done, you create a lot of waste downstream. You feed in a lot of requirements into downstream activities, and although you may discover they are bad requirements or inaccurate requirements, a lot of work has been spent already, for example, by unit tests, to then go figure out these are the wrong requirements. And obviously, when you get down to system tests and acceptance testing, at the very end, a tremendous amount of time has been wasted. But I have a lot of clients that actually do Waterfall, but they're also very good at doing requirements. They're also very good at doing prototyping and feedback loops, which they add to Waterfall. They add risk management to Waterfall, which eliminates or reduces the risk of having bad requirements. So there are things you can easily add to Waterfall to make it a lot more robust and less risky. When you give the Waterfall flow to an end user or a customer or a salesperson or marketing, there's pressure for them to kind of shove everything into the first box there, because if you don't revisit the box too often, or they believe there's like a contract in place or a schedule in place, they may cram that box with